And then this is where a lot of it all comes together. And I want to talk about this last one. It's Faithstone 13, or if you're using the sheet that we've been walking through, it's 14. It's develop a personal ministry plan. And for us, this is where it all hopefully comes together. Underline hopefully, because we work with young people. And the idea with this is we want them to be the same person, okay, out in the world that my wife and I see here in church. Okay, because we tend to see the godly side of teenagers. I tend to see the happy, positive, faith-growing side of teenagers, and I'm not naive. I know when they get home, they butt heads with mom and dad and brothers and sisters, and there's stuff like that. And I know occasionally I hear about things in school that they're a different person when they're not here. And our goal, obviously, is that they be have a consistent walk with Jesus wherever they are, whether they're here or whether they're out in the world. And so one of the ways that we try to do this, one of the ways we wanted to do this, was we came up with this, it just actually says having a personal ministry plan. And this is another handout there. It's the one that says, it's the last one. It says 8 personal ministry plan. And the personal ministry plan is just something, it's a sheet that we came up with, which is, again, a real simple sheet. My wife and I are not complicated people. Everything we do, we have to sit there and go, how can I get a 7th grader to understand this? And so that's just the way we think all the time. How can I get a 7th grader to understand this? And so that's just what we have to do. And so a lot of times adults kind of go, oh, I understand this. I say, yeah, it's simple. It's just that everything we do is simple. And so we have that sheet that just says personal ministry plan. It's that handout there that says number 8 in front of it. And it just basically says list a group, person, or place in there. And then underneath it, it says, how can you influence those with whom you come in contact with? So it basically says, my interest is, they fill in the blank, and then what they can do so that becomes their personal ministry plan. And this is what we tell kids. And I hope this is theologically correct. Because as I say probably once every time we do one of these, I'm not a theologian. But I tell folks this. I say, if you're on a volleyball team and you're late, and you're the only Christian on the volleyball team, okay, in my eyes, okay, that team is in spiritual darkness, okay? And so if your name is Julia and you're on the volleyball team, and once you get there and you're the only Christian, you are bringing with you the light of Christ, and you are an ambassador for Jesus. And as you come in, it changes everything. And this is my way of helping remind students of who they are, of who you are. I mean, with you comes the presence of Christ everywhere you go. And so we tell them all, tell Julia, if you're on the volleyball team, you don't have the luxury of just being on the volleyball team. You're an ambassador for Jesus anywhere you go. So as we kind of work through this process and we get to this point, the personal ministry plans, we just have young people list things you're involved in. And so they'll list 3 or 4 things they're involved in. They'll say, pick one. And so Julia picked volleyball. And so volleyball just says, list a group, person, or place. She put down volleyball. At the time, it was the middle school volleyball team. It says, how can you influence those with whom you come in contact? And so this is where her personal standards come in, and maybe her missional direction might come in if she's got one at that point. But you begin to say, I'm going to pray for our coaches. I'm not going to participate in humor at the expense of others. And so these standards come in so you can be a good ambassador for Jesus while you're in the secular world and you're on this volleyball team. We tell our marching band members, which are, many, our half our youth group disappears in the fall because they're all in marching band. And that used to be a source of tension. It still kind of makes me twitch once in a while because I can't do anything till November. And so, so there's a source of tension there. But we began to take it and turn that around and say, so-and-so, this is your ministry. I mean, so we start thinking about it. We have whatever the number is, how many people in the band? I mean, we can have a significant influence on this band if we're all there with the understanding that we are influencing this band for Jesus and we are ambassadors for Christ. And so we're helping young people to see these activities as part of their ministry with God. The best, I shouldn't say the best, but one of the examples we had a guy named Danny, who was, captain of the football team, all that kind of stuff. Danny was the man, and captain of the football team, and good Christian, solid guy. And I used to love to take Danny around with me in front of groups, even groups of adults, and I would ask Danny a whole bunch of questions, and he made me look really bad, and that was the goal, And I'd say things like, "Danny, do you help at St. John's? You involved with the puppets on Monday night?" He'd be like, "No." I say, at the time we had teenagers in the praise band. I say, "You part of the praise band on Tuesday nights?" He'd say, "No." I say, "Do you help with the middle schoolers?" "No." "Do you come to youth group on Wednesday night?" "No." "Do you help with the little kids on Thursday night?" "No." It's like, "Okay, Danny, you're making me look like really bad." What do you do? And Danny, God love him, he just used to be able to say, he'd say, "Well, my personal mission right now is the Grove City High School football team. I come to worship, I come to Sunday school, I come to the equipping events." And he says, "My goal is to become equipped so that I can go out and have an influence on the football team." And it'd be like, whoa. And I'd say, "Now, Danny, how's that going for you?" And he'd look at me and he'd say, "Gary, it's really hard. It's really hard." And he'd say, "How many times?" He says, "I go to the parties because that's where the football team is. And how can I have an influence on them if I'm not where they are?" So he'd say he'd go to the parties, and he'd say there's times when he would just be in the bathroom at somebody's house, just praying God would give him strength to be a good witness amongst whatever was going on. And just what a good guy, he just was. Yeah, he graduated. He played on the scout team for Ohio State for a couple years, and then I think he even got in a few games on the kickoffs, tackle stuff, just special teams kind of stuff. So yeah, just a good guy. And Danny's still around. Danny's still around. And so that would be like one of those examples. Another example would be, I may have talked about this when I talked so much about Erica. I'm not sure if I mentioned it here in one of the webinars. Erica would be another good example of how we go about this. Erica is currently a freshman. Erica is into soccer. And Erica's been through this system of developing personal standards and mission direction. She understands that the soccer team is her ministry. Part of what she's supposed to have an influence on them. And so when I see Erica on Sunday and I say, "Erica, how'd you do last weekend?" Erica knows I'm not asking, "Did you win or lose?" Erica knows I really don't care if you win or lose. My apologies to all the coaches that are listening. I said, and so when I say, "Erica, how did you do?" she knows I'm asking, how did you do as being an ambassador for Christ? How did you do, if you won, did you win with humility? If you lost, did you lose with dignity? If somebody was injured on the other team or on your team, did you stop and pray? Did you say anything? When somebody on the other team was elbowing you and the ref didn't see it and wasn't calling any penalties or whatever on the other team, how were you handling that? And how do you, and so, she knows these are the questions I'm asking. How did you do as a person, as a Christian, as an ambassador while you're out there on the soccer team? So that's what we're hoping, and that's what we're trying to get young people to do, to take these wonderful young people that we know so well and love so deeply and have them be this way everywhere they go, and while they're there, let the light shine through them, and that God may see their good works and glorify their Father in heaven. So that's how these three come together, and so it's a big deal for us. We talk about it a lot.